From a god statue that reportedly burst out laughing when an emperor tried to give it his own face, to an emperor who married a meteorite to a goddess and threw the whole city a wedding, to an emperor who made the entire Roman world get down on the floor and kiss the hem of his robe. This is every Roman emperor who was 100% convinced he was a living god. And spoiler, out of all of them, exactly one didn't get murdered for it.
Felix here, Centurion, 22 years service. I was on the duty roster for most of this nonsense, and I kept notes. You're gonna want the notes.
Quick ground rule. In Rome, becoming a god after you died was normal. The Senate would vote on it and stamp your face on a coin. This video isn't about those guys. This is about the emperors who didn't want to wait, who looked at the actual gods and went, yeah, I'm basically one of those, while I'm still breathing. And it starts with the man who got promoted to god by a comet. Julius Caesar, technically a dictator, but he wrote the playbook. While he was still alive, the Senate had already handed him god-tier perks, a statue placed among the actual gods, and his own personal priest. Then he was assassinated. We'll spare you the stab count this time. And at his funeral games, something happened that sealed the deal. For 7 straight days, a comet blazed across the daytime sky. The Romans looked up and decided, collectively, that's Caesar. That's his soul up there watching. They declared him Divus Julius, the divine Julius, the first Roman officially upgraded from man to god, and his adopted son was paying very close attention.
He saw, Dad's a comet now, sir, and thought, so what does that make me? Wrong lesson. Wrong lesson to learn.
That son was Augustus, and he played it brilliant. Officially, he was Divi Filius, son of the divine, but he was far too smart to demand worship in Rome itself, where the last god king got 23 reminders that he was mortal. So in the capital, he played humble. Out in the provinces, though, where the Senate couldn't see, he let entire cities build temples to him and worship him as a living god. He franchised his own religion and kept the home branch looking modest for the reviews. And when he died, a senator stood up and swore on his honor that he'd personally watched Augustus's soul rise out of the funeral flames and fly up to heaven. Rock-solid eyewitness testimony, which he was paid 1 million sesterces for by Augustus's widow.
A paid witness, sir. The first influencer. Saw the soul ascend. Link in bio. Use code DIVINE.
Then came Caligula, who had the family's god ambitions and none of the breaks. He built a temple to his own divinity with a life-size golden statue of himself, and he gave the priests one job: dress that statue every single morning in the exact outfit Caligula was wearing that day, matching fits with himself. Then he started dressing as the gods: Jupiter, Neptune, even the goddess Venus, full costume. And he picked a fight with the king of the gods himself. He connected his palace directly to the temple of Jupiter so he could live next door to his brother. And he'd walk up to the giant statue, lean into its stone ear and whisper, sometimes threats. The line people remembered: raise me up to heaven or I'll cast you down.
He threatened Jupiter, sir, to his face. I have personally watched a man heckle the sky and then ask me what's for lunch.
And the boldest move of all, Caligula ordered the most famous god statues in the empire, including the legendary statue of Zeus at Olympia, one of the 7 wonders of the world, shipped to Rome so he could replace their heads with his own face. According to the story, when the workmen came to take the Zeus statue apart, it suddenly burst into a roar of laughter so loud that the scaffolding collapsed and the entire crew ran for their lives.
Even the gods were laughing at this one, sir. Out loud, on the record.
Nero saw himself as the human form of the sun, the new Apollo, and the eastern half of the empire was happy to hail him as a god on earth. But the truly strange part is what happened after he died. Nero was so wrapped up in his own divinity that a huge chunk of the empire simply refused to believe he was gone. A legend spread that Nero hadn't really died, that he was hiding in the east and would return, resurrected, to take back his throne. It got so widespread that over the next 20 years, at least 3 different imposters turned up claiming to be the returned Nero, and each one gathered real armed followers.
People were this sure he was a god, sir. They wouldn't even let him stay dead. That's the dream, honestly. Awful guy. Incredible PR.
Elagabalus became emperor at 14, and before Rome, he'd been the teenage high priest of a Syrian sun god. And the god wasn't a handsome statue of a man. It was a big black cone-shaped rock. a meteorite. So when this kid takes over the most powerful empire on Earth, he doesn't adopt Rome's gods. He brings his rock to Rome, builds it a massive temple, and announces that his sun god now outranks Jupiter and the entire Roman pantheon. Then he decides his god needs a wife, so he stages a full divine wedding, marrying his meteorite to a sacred goddess statue and making the whole city celebrate it like a royal engagement. And when he paraded the rock through Rome in a chariot, Elagabalus walked the entire route backwards in front of it so that he would never once turn his back on his god.
He walked backwards through the entire city, sir, in front of a rock. Do you know how many people you crash into walking backwards through Rome? I was one of them.
Now, most of this list got loud about being divine and got stabbed for it. Aurelian got clever. He was genuinely the most competent man here. He hauled a collapsing empire back together with his bare hands. And he tied himself to the sun god, Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun, built him a glorious temple, and cast himself as the sun's chosen man on earth. Then he made it permanent the smart way. He stamped it onto the money. Coins minted under Aurelian started calling him born god and lord. So you didn't have to go to a temple to worship him. You endorsed his divinity every single time you bought a loaf of bread.
Loud emperors get stabbed in hallways, sir. Quiet ones get into your wallet. This one was in my wallet.
Which brings us to the man who beat all of them, Diocletian. He didn't whisper to statues or import rocks. He rebuilt the emperor himself into a god you weren't even allowed to look at. He took the name Jovius, Jupiter's man on Earth, and he invented a ritual we now call the adoratio. If you came before the emperor now, you didn't shake his hand or bow your head. You got down flat on the ground, crawled forward, and kissed the hem of his robe. And the robe was the entire point. Purple silk, gold thread, jewels, and a blazing jeweled crown, deliberately made so bright that looking straight at him felt like staring into the sun.
I have done it, sir. Forehead on the cold marble, lips on the fancy hem, and I do not kneel easy. That robe cost more than my entire village.
He turned worshipping the emperor from a crazy man's hobby into the official operating system of the empire. Boring, mandatory, and permanent. And here's the kicker. Out of every single god emperor on this list, Diocletian is the only one who didn't get murdered for it. He made the whole world bow to him as a god on earth, and then calmly walked away from power and died peacefully in his own bed, an old man.
The only one who survived being a god, sir, and he did it by turning it into paperwork. Respect.
So there they are, the emperors who looked in the mirror and saw a god. Caesar got a comet. Augustus paid a man to watch his soul fly to heaven. Caligula threatened Jupiter and got laughed at by a statue. Nero refused to even stay dead. Elagabalus married a meteorite. Aurelian printed his own godhood onto your lunch money. And Diocletian made the entire world kiss his robe and walked away the only survivor. Turns out the survival rate for declaring yourself a living god is almost perfectly terrible.
Well, that was a bummer. A shiny, gold-plated bummer. I'm keeping the notes.
But if you want to see what these maniacs did when they wanted to show off their actual power, not their divinity, their raw, ruthless, jaw-dropping power, that's a whole other story. Every Roman emperor's most savage power move is right here. Click it, and I'll see you over there.
Bring snacks. Felix, out.